Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show where we talk about all things automotive. Front of the store, back of the store, the office, doesn't really matter. The better we all get at what we do, the better the customer experience. And it's always been about the customer experience. So I try to bring on the experts that share with us what they do to help us all get better. And today I have Robert Stage of Stage One Mobile, Diagnostics and Auto Repair, who's going to share with us some of the things he does. We're going to do a quick video and then we're going to jump right into it.
Getting good offers on your trade-in is a hassle for sellers, and finding and sourcing quality local trade-ins is a challenge for dealers. That's why there's DriveBid.com. DriveBid.com is the world's first open market competitive vehicle trade platform. Unlike other platforms, our site is completely free to sign up. No contract, no minimum, no required spend. Our 100% consumer-generated marketplace means you're free to participate, free to bid, and free to source inventory. Dealers only pay when a trade is bid locked. With DriveBid.com, consumers will get top dollar for their vehicle, and dealers will have access to a huge selection of privately owned vehicles in their market, along with detailed information on both the vehicle and seller. And DriveBid.com offers both buyers and sellers a safe, secure transaction. Banks compete for mortgage rates. Isn't it time for dealers to compete for trades? DriveBid.com, rolling out summer 2022. Join now for free.
All right, so Robert, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much, Paul, for having me on. I appreciate it.
So for those that may not know you, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you and how you got into this business and what brings you to where you are today?
Sure thing. So I've been in the industry about 32 years. Started out just as an apprentice at a really small dealership or a small gas station, old Art Deco style gas station, actually in Grove City, Ohio. And then learned that I didn't want to do motors and transmissions for the rest of my life. So I started watching and seeing what the guys in the industry were doing that, could get away from that type of work and get somewhere into the more mental side of it. So I seen the diagnostic side was kind of where I wanted to go. So I'd done that for about 22 years, learned lab scopes, learned scan tools, learned all the things, the ins and outs of the vehicles, and then ended up at the dealerships for approximately 5 years. I was a Volkswagen certified mechanic. I'm also ASC certified master technician now. I was able to just get the last 4 tests last summer, passed those, and then was a dealership manager for a little while. Done that. And then when COVID hit, I was kind of in between work. I'd been doing some consulting work, and then of course COVID shut everything down. So I had a gentleman approach me that I was in business with and working with. He done mobile oil changes, and he could do them fairly quickly. And he was really good at what he done. He had marketed his business well, so he kind of explained to me like, I've seen what you've been able to do with this dealership that you're at. You really should be doing this for yourself. So it kind of coaxed me out of, that shell. And especially with COVID being here, I moved into doing mobile service, at people's homes and taking, that knowledge that I'd gained, the training, all the automotive, technician work that I'd done, and basically just take it to people's homes now and work on their vehicles there. So that's kind of where we're at now too. Like you were saying, this industry is evolving so quickly and we're heading kind of at the end of a trebuchet. We're just flying into the future. But like we just spoke right before on camera, have we really went that far? Because the more things change, the more they stay the same. Back in 100 years ago, there was, the cars were, you had to go fix them. There wasn't a place to have the vehicle fixed. So agricultural people that farmed, they all knew how to weld. They all knew how to fix vehicles. They all knew how to fix things. So we're kind of right back in that same situation again, where now it's luxury to have your vehicle worked on, but it is able to be, it's able to be performed. So.
That's great stuff. We got a couple of comments. Russell B. Hill, good evening all. Cannot wait to get the goods tonight. Eric says, good evening, gentlemen, from SDL, favorite Sunday morning event. Michael Weldon, good evening all from the West Coast. And Robert Hill says, welcome, Robert. Timothy Wilson, good evening, gentlemen. And Marco Zwanenberg, all the way from Florida. Damn, look at Robert going. Great guest ball. Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, I put
Thank you, gentlemen.
The 3 stages of automotive repair, and Robert's company is stage 1. So the question was asked, where are the other stages? Well, here's how I see it. In the beginning, stage 1 of auto repair, not quite back as far as Robert went, was people were always going to the dealership to service their car because, hey, my car's under warranty, I've got to go there. And I've been told multiple times that if I don't come back to the dealer for service, you're going to void your warranty. So a lot of people like myself went back to the dealer for service. And then we found out that, well, no, you're not going to void your warranty if you don't go back to the service. So that dialogue changed a little bit. And we moved into what I refer to as stage 2 of automotive repair. And those are all of the aftermarket shops that popped up around the dealership, not by accident. The aftermarket, they do a great job in servicing customers. They don't have the same skill set and facilities as dealers do, but consumers that a lot of them just care about getting the car maintained in and out quickly, decided that even though in a lot of cases you're paying more for that quick service, I think we'd all be hard pressed to disagree that we wouldn't all spend more money for better service and a better service experience. So that's stage 2. Then we moved into what I call stage 3, which brings us full circle. Stage 3 is you have these thought leaders, guys like Brian Benstock and others, that decided, all right, well, let's listen to the consumer. They don't want to come to us, or they may be too busy to come to us. So let's figure out a way to bring the service to them by doing drop off and pickup so they don't have to come to the dealership. There are shifts that run around the clock. So while you're sleeping or while you're busy at work, your car gets picked up, it gets worked on, and because of that convenience, customers would be more likely to spend more money, and he has the data to back this up. So it's not, the questions are always asked, what does it cost to do drop off and pickup? Well, his answer was $60 per car. A lot of people would say, well, that's crazy. You're crazy. I'm not spending that. But guess what? He more than doubled his RO dollars by offering that convenience, because let's face it, if I'm at home and you're going to come pick up my car and you discover that it needs something else, I'm going to be more inclined to just have it done while it's there, because I want to be guided through the process by a service professional that understands me, the customer, and customer service, and the cars, to recommend what needs to be done so I can get my car serviced. And then you add some steroids to that mix, and along comes a guy named Robert Stage to take it even a step further. Now, what I loved, my background, I started in the aftermarket. And what I loved about the aftermarket is that I knew all the customers knew all of my technicians, and we knew their families. So the relationship was there. We got more work than we ever imagined we would get, and we got pushed into doing repairs we had no intention of doing. But it's pretty hard to say no to a customer that comes to you, that has their car towed in, that says, hey, I want you to do this, this, and this for me. And you try to tell them on the phone, hey, Mr. Jones, I'm terribly sorry, but we don't do that kind of repair. And they come back with, oh, come on, but you do all this other stuff for me. Would you please do it for me? So we ended up expanding our service. So the 3 stages have come full circle, and stage 3 is really stage 1, pun intended, stage 1 mobile. And we talked about convenience, right? You don't have to come to the dealership. So what is something that you hear most often from your customers as it relates to convenience?
The first thing that really pops up is just the fact that I can come there and I work on the car, because they're kind of still not shy about it, but they just don't understand that there's a lot of things that can be done that you don't need a lift for. And that's basically where I come in. Even if it's brakes, even if it's, something underneath the vehicle, I have
Yeah.
jacks and jack stands to get the vehicle high enough off the ground where I can skinny underneath of it and still look at things that need to be looked at. So that's probably the biggest thing, that they can't believe that someone's going to be able to come and do a brake job on my car, or someone's going to be able to come and do a fluid exchange, those types of things. The other one is, I really notice getting into the aftermarket and being that close to the client, the consumer, is there's a huge trust factor still to this day that people don't trust. They don't want to take their vehicle. It's like you said, it's a convenience factor, but the trust side of it is really deteriorated. And of course, we're looking around and we're seeing institutions that seem like they're kind of crumbling, and all of these other things are coming along, and that trust, it boils over into everything. And that trust between the technician or the service advisor, to the client, or the service director, even, that's not like it used to be. Our industry gets a bad rap sometimes, and sometimes it's warranted, sometimes it's not. So I'm trying to, when I go to a customer's house, I try to explain to them, I try to educate, I try to be an ambassador for the actual industry, just to make sure that people understand that not everyone is out to take them for for a ride. The other thing that I notice is people get really excited and they get really involved when they see you get a piece of equipment and attach it to their vehicle. So I'm one of those people that, I was a technician for a long time. I wasn't like some of the other guys. They would get upset. They would get flustered if someone watched, or even if they were 20 feet away at the window. There was jokes all the time in the shop. Hey, this person's at. I always told them, everyone's a waiter. They're all
Yes.
waiting somewhere. So it doesn't really matter if they're up front or not. Just fix their vehicle. So I kind of take that the next step, and I just allow people to see what I do. And that really builds that trust, because their car's still at home. They're at home. They're right next to their vehicle. I can answer any question that they want, that they might have about that vehicle or about what process I'm performing. I'm able to just explain to them, this is why I do this. If I have a laptop hooked to a Volkswagen or to an Audi, and I've got, Ross Tech running, I can show them, here's the codes. This is what's come up. Here's the next test that I have to do. And I just take them down through a test plan. So the trust, I would say, the ability that someone can come to the home and actually work on their vehicle blows them away. And when I do like a brake flush, or if I do, say, a coolant pump on a vehicle, I've got a big roll that's made for garages that's made out of rubber, and it'll hold about a gallon of fluid. So everything's done with, following EPA standards, and everything's cleaned up at the end. Nothing gets on their concrete driveways, nothing kills their grass. So everyone's happy in the end. And, that's why I've got so many decent word of mouth. I've not spent a ton of money on advertising, and never had to, in almost 2 years. People just continue to see that there's a competency hierarchy. And if you climb it high enough and you get some decent word of mouth and you show people what you're able to do, like you said with your business, it just takes off. There's no stopping.
Yeah.
It's like a freight train.
I want to get to a couple of comments and then I'll jump in here. Terry Turline, love the innovation. Can you do mobile inspection on used cars purchased online? Can you do that? So somebody would just reach out to you. Hey, I'm interested. I'm in the process of purchasing this car. I'd like you to do a pre-purchase inspection, and you can line that up with them.
Yep.
And total peace of mind.
I do PPIs. Exactly. I do PPIs. I also do after they've already purchased it, and say maybe a check engine light comes back on. I can go and actually look at that vehicle too. which it's always better to do a pre-purchase. So those of you
Right.
that's out there that's listening, if you have a vehicle that's in mind, it's something that you do want to purchase, reach out to someone first and have them look the vehicle over. You could do like a 127 point inspection and a code scan, and that doesn't run very much money. I mean, I do them, in my market for $49.99 plus tax. That's not a lot of money for someone to look that vehicle over, check for TSBs, see if there's any recalls. That's not really difficult on someone that really wants to buy a vehicle, but wants to take the extra added precaution that maybe I should have somebody that's certified to maybe look at it.
An ounce of prevention is always worth a pound of cure. I'd rather spend $100 to make sure that I didn't buy a total headache than save that $100 and then find out the car needs a tranny 3 months after I purchased it. That's
Sure.
that's a $8,000 to $10,000 repair, depending on where and what you have done. Russell B.
True.
Hill says, mobile service appears to be becoming more widespread than I ever remember. Technology is moving so fast at the speed of light. And Michael Larkin says, hi, good people. Chiara Stage. I wonder. It says, good luck, Dad. I figured she was
Got a
related
troll.
to you.
Got one trolling.
And my good friend Gene Girdley, you two are difference makers. Love you both. Feeling is mutual, Gene. Thank you.
Gene's awesome.
Gene says, go Midas Man. And Mark Williamson, hello all. Robert Stage on stage. Had to say that. And Gene Girdley says, Robert, do you deal with EPA issues with the fluids in your state, or just take the old stuff to a local auto parts to dump the old fluid? How does that work?
So I pretty much partner with Zone. I use them for a lot of the aftermarket stuff. I try to always use OEM style, parts. But if the client doesn't want to necessarily go with those parts, sometimes they're more expensive. Sometimes they're actually not. But typically, I will get everything bottled back up on site and then actually take it to the store and have it disposed of. So that way, everything's taken care of the way it needs to be taken care of. You don't run into any problems like I was saying before. And then you just take it there and get rid of it. So, yeah, it works really well.
Chris Sasolka, yes, show them that what you're doing, why you're doing it. That way, when something else comes up, they know that you've been upfront. Absolutely. Now, it's funny because I remember some of my technicians hated when the customers watched them work, and others reveled in it, maybe too much so because it affected how long it took them to do the work. But the bottom line was the trust factor was solid, okay?
Yes.
In the aftermarket, we brought the customer right out to the car. The customer's car is the best-selling tool because that's home base for them. They're comfortable. They know the car. They're comfortable with the car. And it's very easy to visually show them, here's what's wrong, okay? Here's what's wrong with your brakes. You see these pads here? You measure it for them. 2 millimeters, okay? Maybe the spec is 3 millimeters, okay? This puts you in the danger zone, and it puts you at risk for needing additional repairs. So this is what this is what's recommended based on what's measured. Okay, they can see that. You're dealing one-on-one with them. Whenever there's a fear of the unknown, that's when that's when the walls come up. They're not sure whether or not they should trust you, because let's face it, the few always ruin it for the many. Most people in our business are honest, hardworking people that want nothing but the best for their clients and themselves. But there are a couple of shitheads that ruin it for everybody. So the one time they get taken advantage of, now they assume that everybody is bad. That doesn't help anybody. So while in the aftermarket, and what you do, you're right there with them. At the dealership level, we can kind of work around that. Okay, and here's how I've recommended working around it. You do your walk around for those customers, and I think most of them would appreciate it. Not that you're trying to sell them stuff, but you want to educate them. It's not about selling. It's always about educating, because if you educate them and make them smarter on their own vehicle, they're going to trust you more. That saying, sell the green. Absolutely. That conversation should be had from minute one when a customer comes to your store to even look at a car. That this is how you take care of your customers. Today's cars on the road 12 years on average, on the long side.
That's correct.
So you want to make sure that conversation is had early. So while at a dealership, it's not feasible or typical for you to take the customer out to the car and show them on the lift because of insurance regulations and company policies and all that. But guess what? You can work around that. So if you do your walk around, it's to catch the things you don't make any money on, like the bulbs, the wipers. But guess what? The customer doesn't remember that the bulb doesn't work when they're at your store in the daylight. But then the next time they're driving the car at night and they see that the light's out, I just had my car in for service. Why didn't you tell me? Not that they've had it bad for 6 months. They put it back on you, right?
Correct.
So now you've done your walk around. You've caught maybe a wiper that needs the replacement or a bulb. You've also minimized your policy expense because you've noticed that there's some physical damage there that looks fresh. That's a simple, what happened here? Oh, wow, that must have just happened. I didn't even know that was there. Oh, okay. I just wanted to point it out to you, right?
Yeah, exactly. When I was service managing the dealerships, I always had this policy. And if we had a vehicle that was already cashed out and the vehicle had left, and if there was an issue where they had to come back an hour later, if it had to get an RO, it came back in the shop and it had at least a walk around, and we would do another MPI on it. And it didn't matter if it just went down the street and turned around and came back. And it was for the exact same reason that you just said. You don't know what's happened to that vehicle in the hour that it's been gone or in the 20 minutes that it's been gone. And you want to know that you look the vehicle back over again just to make sure that it was still in working order, and then address, what exactly it is that the client and the customer was worried about.
And the great thing about doing the walk around, and I say take it one step further, right? You're doing your tire check with them. You're getting down on one knee and you're measuring the tire thread. So you're able to show them. So here's what the specs are. You can have the conversation about how much longer it takes you to stop depending on how thick the tire treads are. They'll understand that. What do you think what do you think the next question is going to be when you say, hey, it should be 230 seconds and yours, here are the wear indicator bars that are showing. What's their next question going to be? You guys
how much
tires?
and how long?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So right off
how
the
much
bat,
and how long?
So that's an $800 to $1,000 expense to a customer at any given time, depending on the car. Right. So right off the bat, you've established trust because you're looking out for their safety. And you let them know, hey, we do these all the time, depending on which ones actually go on your car. It's anywhere from $800 to $1,000, whatever the range is that you already know, because this is what you do. So now they may have come in for that $120 service, but they're already prepped. They know they've bought into the fact that they need tires, and that's going to cost them some money. And depending on what the mileage interval is, I would take it one step further. Hey, I know you didn't complain about this in verifying the conditions that you've come in for, but I just want to let you know there are a number of cars like yours at this mileage point that end up being due for front brake pads and rotors. I don't know whether or not you even need them, but I just wanted to let you know because I know your time is valuable and your safety is important. If it turns out that you need them, I'll have the specifications written down to show you. I can even save the old parts for you. But if you need them, it's going to run you another $325. What am I going to say? If my car needs brakes? Oh, no, I don't want to do the brakes. I want to be on safe. And then you take it one step further and you let them know, I know you're busy at work. So what I'm going to do is, we're going to go ahead and do the service. You're okay with the tires? Yes. Oh, yeah, I'm good with the tires. And if you need the brakes, I'll let you know you need the brakes and it's this much more. You okay with that? Yeah, no problem. And I'm going to text it to you because if you're in a meeting, I know I can't disturb you, and I don't want to disturb you. We've already had this conversation. I'm going to text you. We're doing the service and the tires. You don't need the brakes now, but we'll look at it next time. Is it fair enough? It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's a complete no-brainer.
Because the alternative is this. I'm at work as the customer. I dropped off the car for my $120 service, and I get a phone call from Johnny Service Advisor that says, oh, you need brakes, you need tires, and the whole repair is going to cost you $1,500. Now I'm sitting here like this at work.
Right.
My coworker naturally says, hey, Paul, what's going on? It's the dealer. He says, I need $1,500 worth of work. What? That's crazy. What's he saying? He says, I need tires and I need brakes. Were you having any problem with the tires? No. Guess what?
Exactly.
You're not going to have any problem until you skid off the road because it's gradual wear. Were you having any problem with the brakes? No. Of course not. They're self-adjusting. So you won't know until you're down to metal. So now, I said, I wouldn't just fork over the money. Tell them to just do the service you came in for, and you'll get back to them. And you could take it to my guy on the weekend to get it checked out. Yeah, we're just going to do the service right now. They don't trust you. That's why they're not authorizing it. But had you shown them, like the example before, you send them the text. You didn't need the brakes, but you do need the tires. The total with everything is $1,200. Just reply with yes, and we'll get started. Yes, bam, done. As opposed to trying to call, I can't get through. So now the gamble starts. So I leave the car on the lift. Hopefully they'll call back right away, or they would take it off. I'm going to gamble, maybe 10, 15 minutes. Put the wheels on and put it outside. Now you may not hear back till later. You got to bring it back in. That takes more time. So you've killed a half hour easily, right?
Oh,
we
yeah.
We have less technicians today. We have less technicians today. Can we afford to kill a half hour? No, we can't.
Absolutely not.
So, yeah. So now
I would take that scenario even one step further, because if you're doing tires, it should always have an alignment check. So alignments in this business, in this industry, is one of the biggest overlooked things that people don't make any money off of in the shop because they don't offer them. If you don't ask for the sale, you're not going to get the sale. So the alignment of the tires is detrimental to their operation, over time. Like you said, it's accelerated degeneration. It's gradual wear. They don't know. So you could have a tire, a car that's got tires that are worn perfectly fine, but it could still be out of alignment. So you need to have that looked at. You do need to have it hooked to a machine and looked at. And, with new technology, you can drive over a tread depth checker with the actual system set into it, the traction, all these different companies make, TPI, and you can have that looked at the dealership. Those are things that I'm unable to offer. However, because I've got trained eyes and I've been able, doing this stuff for so long, I'm able to look at a tire and I can tell you that, you should probably have that thing checked out. You should have it looked at, because this does have alignment wear. It's got shock wear, it's got little skips and cuts into the tire. There's all different kinds of, different wear that tires can exhibit. But you're right. I mean, at the dealership, when you're there, you might as well go through. This is what we see. These are the things that, we see quite often, especially at the mileage and the time. The other thing I would say to that is the kneeling down thing. And for those salespeople that's out there, if you don't do this, you're missing out, because it's a social selling thing that you should be doing, because psychologically, when you lower yourself below the other person and you put your knee on the ground, you're less threatening to them. So it's already a weird scenario where you're driving your car into this big building that you don't do all the time, because you're usually pulling in a small garage. You have this other person that you've not really met, you don't really have a rapport with typically, because turnover rates in the dealership on the service side can, really hamper a service department. So if you do these things, just like it's no different than if you go to a restaurant and the waiter or the waitress will sit down next to you and talk to you and your wife and say, hey, it's all social selling, every bit of it. It's the same thing, but it's selling something different.
Yeah.
It's no different in the automotive industry. If you show people that you care and you show people that you're interested in what their vehicle is doing and what's going on with it, like you said before, they will definitely buy from you.
Because you've taken that barrier and you've crushed it. Russell B. Hill says, great question, Gene. Chris Sasalka, if a job takes significantly less time than you expected, or the book said it would take, do you reduce the quote/charge for the service?
The doctor doesn't cut his throat. I don't cut mine either. No, the sign of a good technician and someone who values what they do is they charge the price that the book says. I run into this question a lot on Facebook and in different Facebook groups. The book is the book. So I use all data. A lot of guys use, their information systems from, their work as far as, at the OEMs. I was at Volkswagen, so we used Elsa Pro. There's all the different types of information systems you can use. You can use Pro Demand. You can use tons of different ones that are out there. But my job is to fix it right the first time and fix it just as quickly as I possibly can in the manner that the manual says it's supposed to be fixed. That's actually how you make money in this industry. You don't cut your profit because you did a job really good and it was fixed right the first time. To me, that's the first signs of insanity, because why would anybody do that? I mean, if you went somewhere and you bought a book, it's the same thing. It's like, why would you discount it right off the bat because you did something that was good? You don't punish yourself for doing things that are good. Great question, though, because I have seen that come up multiple times.
And people, when properly explained, it is book time based on the average time that it should take. Now, if somebody is skilled, they're going to do it in less time. If somebody's not skilled, you're not paying them to learn on your car. So I think anybody can understand that conversation. It's just a conversation that needs to be had. But great question, Chris. Russell Hill, great price to check the vehicle out and make recommendations. Yeah, I would charge more, but that's me. Gene Gurley says, Russell B. Hill, thanks. And Mike Fisher, send the customer a video of the damage or work needed if they are not standing next to you. So while the relationship building, in my opinion, doesn't get any stronger than what you do, there are workarounds, like the scenario I described before is a workaround where you can try to get to what you are able to get face to face. And the video is another great thing. And,
correct.
People will always look for the excuse as to why it won't work. They'll spend 5 times the amount of time trying to come up with an excuse why it won't work rather than figuring out how to get it to work. There's so much technology today. And if you want to get really stupid about it, your phone, whether it's an Android phone or an Apple phone, I mean, it could literally be that simple to take a short video, and you don't even have to be on camera. Your finger could be on camera pointing to the things that are needed. So yeah, great comment there, Mike. And Chris Sasalka says, are you franchising this business or replicating what you do in other cities and states?
Not at this point, but it does continue to grow at an exponential rate. So at some point in the next year, maybe year and a half, those could be some options that I would, be interested in looking into.
I mean, who wouldn't want that kind of convenience? And Robert Sebastian, my favorite attitude / care completely. Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't get any better than that. Now,
I like always telling people what I can do. I don't like telling what I can't do, and I like to please people. So if it's something that I can do and I can do it there, on site, I'm absolutely going to do it for them if they okay it. Just a quick anecdote to what you were just talking about. There's a lot of my clients that I don't even see. Like, they'll actually be inside of their house the entire time I work on their vehicle. They've given me verbal through a text or a Facebook message, permission to look at the vehicle, and here's where the keys are at. They may not even be home sometimes. And I'll look at the vehicle and then take video, take photos, and I'll send them to them, and I can attach it to my estimates through Square. So I can actually send the estimate right to them wherever they're at. I had one lady that had her vehicle that had some rodents that had eaten a couple of the wires on the mass airflow sensor. I was able to send her, she's, watching her young son. I was able to send her video and text and let her see what it needed. And I was able to repair it. And she paid me through the internet, through the magic of the internet. And I was able to fix the vehicle, close her garage door, hop back in my vehicle and leave. There was no contact whatsoever. So, of course, while COVID was going on, this was perfectly acceptable for just about everyone, because when we started a conversation, it was kind of COVID that kind of pushed everything that direction.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. I mean, and people are still that way. They get to participate as much as they want to. And that's key, because you're meeting them on their terms.
Yeah, I can't say it enough. I was at a restaurant. My wife and I were having lunch, and we were talking about, how long things take at an auto repair.
Sure.
And this woman, she cut me off. She says, no, not everything takes time. She says, I went during my lunch break the other day to a quick lube place. I was in and out in 15 minutes. I didn't even have to get out of my car. And I know I paid more money than I would have paid had I gone someplace else. But you want to know what? My time is more valuable to me, and I will gladly pay more every single time for that kind of convenience. And
sure.
the fact
It's the
that
reason a gallon of milk at Sunoco is $5.35, and you can get one at the store for $3.79. It's the exact same principle. It's no different whatsoever.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know what? I don't want to go to supermarket, so I will go to the convenience store, and I will get what I need and pay more for it, because I know I'm in and out. If I have to spend more time, that's going to cost me more money, because I'm going to pick up some impulse stuff at the same time. Not saying I don't pick up impulse stuff at the convenience store, because sadly, sometimes I do.
Well, they're betting on it. They know you're going to.
Absolutely. And they put that impulse stuff right where I don't really want it to be.
Chiclets and ice cube gum and all the other stuff that everybody, Tic Tacs, orange Tic Tacs. That's kind of, I love those things. But you're exactly right. They're right where you don't want them to be at, because you're going to purchase them.
Now, I think the other part of the reason why you're able to charge quite reasonable fees is because you don't have the need for a full-fledged department. You don't need to have a whole staff of employees. You don't need to have a service advisor. You are the advisor. You don't need to have a service manager, because you are the service manager. You don't need to have the BDC, because you are the BDC. And communication today, I have conversations with scores of people, sometimes through Facebook Messenger, sometimes through one of the other social media platforms, sometimes in text, sometimes in other chat methods. You don't have any of that expense, and they deal directly with you. I mean,
correct.
That saves them time, saves them money. It's all about getting the information quicker, right? I had a company. I buy a lot of stuff, and some companies, there's something in particular I'm looking at purchasing now. With one company going back and forth on email, back and forth. Another company, I sent them a messenger message. The woman responded. I was able to ask her a myriad of questions, to which she had all of the answers right then and there. And when I asked her, could you please send me what we discussed via email after the call, it wasn't a minute after I hung up the phone with her that my email dink, and it was everything that we had spoken about, right down to availability and pricing, just like that. So from a communication standpoint, you can't get more direct than going right to you, the horse's mouth.
Exactly. And let's face it, I mean, it's only going to continue to get faster and faster because people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. And I like to be on camera and on video and let everybody know. I know what started it. It was when you could pull up beside a building and they'd hand you a hamburger out and you could hand them money, is when all of this started. So the cheeseburger, kind of is the reason that we're where we're at, but it's not going to slow down. Like you said,
Right.
it's only going to get faster and faster, and people want to get their vehicles. That's their liberty. That's their way of, exploring the world now.
Yeah.
Just like I was saying earlier, could you imagine, 100 years ago being able to drive 60 miles in one direction and have no issues? That didn't happen. You had to set your own timing, 100 years ago when you was driving a vehicle. You had tires that couldn't stop punctures. I mean, you had to fix your tires while you was out just driving, 60 miles and back. And it's nothing like it is. And it's always going to continue. Like, you've been saying, this stuff's going to keep getting faster and faster and faster. And people are going to continue to get more frustrated when it takes longer.
And just the way vehicles themselves have been evolving, the cars don't need the hardcore repairs that they used to need, right? I remember.
That's correct. They don't.
Oh my God. I remember so many years ago cutting out leaf springs and shocks and trying to get the ball joint apart from the control arm.
Right.
I rarely see that kind of stuff happening now. Everything's going, we're basically, and you and I were talking about this prior, we're basically driving computers.
Right. That's
so
exactly
now,
right.
It's not quite what it used to be. It used to be every 30,000 miles, you do points, cap, rotor, condenser, plugs, right? Now you've got cars that are going 105, 120,000 miles before you even have to replace the plugs. And half the time,
I've seen people ignore that and drive them 170,000 miles before they actually did break down and needed something done to them. So like you said, I mean, the technology is absolutely amazing that you can get something that goes through that type of environment, 2,500 degree combustion chamber temperatures over and over and over. And as long as the vehicle's running, it's amazing that stuff lasts the way that it does now. It's nothing like it used to be.
I remember when one of my previous cars, one of my Lexus cars, at 120,000 miles, I recommended replacing the plugs. I bought the stuff before going in, right?
Right.
And the guy says, I took this out. They look like new. I don't care. I'm on the road. I'm not taking a chance. Change them. Whatever the book says to change, that's what I want to change, because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now, with the driving the computer thing, and I love this part of it, we all have computers, and I did computer repair for a while because I got stuck on the phone waiting for the tech support guy. I spent an entire day and vowed to never be in that situation again. So I taught myself how to repair and build computers. Not that hard. You don't have to be a genius to do it. It's a handful of components and some software that talks to the components. So I learned how to do it. And I know basic computer stuff is disk cleanup. To clean up, there's multiple copies of files that are out there, and disk defragmenter. It's like going to the library. All right. When you're using a computer, every time you grab a file, imagine going to the library, second floor, getting a bunch of books, taking them downstairs in the reading area. You read the books, and instead of going back upstairs and putting them on the shelf where they belong, you just leave them at the front desk. So now you've got a pile of books at the front desk, or known as a fragmented computer, until the librarian, or the page, that's what they called them, would bring the book back and put it on the shelf where it belonged. So basic computer software or repair maintenance is disk cleanup and defragmentation. And we were talking about the electric cars. What do a lot of these cars need, Robert? in the way of service.
Tires, and there's not a lot really on them. Wiper blades, there's not very many things that are on them that is a maintenance item, because a
Yep.
lot of it's built that you don't have to maintain it.
Right.
Software, you can have glitches in software, you can have connection problems, pin drag, all those types of problems. But as far as like real maintenance stuff, there's not a lot of maintenance stuff that's on them. And
So when
guys,
you're-
really, I'm talking to technicians out there now. You have to be able to pivot and move towards those things and at least learn about them, because they're coming your way, even in the aftermarket. I've worked on a few hybrids myself, did a coolant pump on a Honda Accord. You have to know how to diagnose those systems safely, A, and B, you still have to know about how to work on the car, because it is going to be in your bay if it's not already.
And some of the servicing that you do is essentially like this cleanup and defragmentation, because you're scanning the software, and you're looking for what? What are you looking for?
And the Teslas, from what I've been told, I haven't had the chance to do this yet, but literally you're just scanning the code. You're going down through on a laptop and you're looking at the code, trying to find if there's a bug somewhere. You're just trying to debug it. And, you got to be a little bit smarter than I am. I mean, I don't know exactly what they're looking for, but I know if it's explained to me, I know what they're looking for. But it's one of those things where, everyone's going to have to know it at some point, because it is coming down the pike.
So it's a different kind of repair, but yet it's a valid one. So
Right.
the whole notion
Still
of going
takes
to
time.
somebody's home is not as
Right.
crazy as it might have been back
No.
in the day.
And to that point, Volvo, I look for this stuff all the time because I do mobile, of course. Volvo just actually looks like they've had about a year. They're doing at-home service, and they're doing light maintenance, and they're doing software updates. When I was a Volvo service manager, they talked about doing over-the-air updates, kind of like Tesla will. But
Wow.
I don't know if that fell through or not, but they actually have service vehicles that they're trying to get their OEMs, their dealers, to actually put aside for that reason alone, so they can go to people's homes and do exactly what I'm doing.
Ed Roberts is doing that successfully.
Correct.
Mark Mickens is doing that successfully, and
Yep.
there's a Ford store and a Mercedes store.
Right. That's what I was getting ready to
this.
say. Yeah. Ford and Mercedes.
Yeah, they've been doing this. We got a comment from Michael Larkin, meeting the customers on their terms. Very well said. Great example about the convenience store versus the grocery store. I mean, it's where we're going.
It turns into a no-brainer, and exactly what you said. It's where everything's going. I mean, at some point, it's going to get to the point where dealerships are going to have to do what I'm doing. Some of them are, but there needs to be a lot more of them, because I don't find that I'm in competition with anybody but myself. I
Right.
do enough work to keep one person busy. I'm at the point now where I could keep two people busy, I think. But I want to make sure that I don't prematurely hire somebody, and then for 2 days a week, I don't have anything for them to do, because that's not okay. So
Right.
it's one of those things where it's just going to continue to roll steam out of it, and it is going to pick up speed. So they're going to have to get in, get on the ball. There's tons of places that are ordering trucks. They're going to have to continue to order trucks. I know here in the Central Ohio Columbus market, I can count on one hand how many places do legitimate, drive out and go to someone's home actual service. There's not very many of them.
And there's great opportunity, because the statistic from Cox Automotive, a few years old, 7 in 10 don't go back to the dealer for service. So
Right.
if they don't come back to you, if you make it convenient by going to them, I think you'll recapture a good amount of that business. And Chris Sasolka says, what software app do you use to track your customers and jobs? And do you use a tablet while you're out on jobs, or mobile devices?
I use Apple iPhone 13 Pro Max. I use my iPad 12.9. I use it quite a bit. And then as far as software that I use Square, and it does just about everything I need. A lot of places and a lot of guys are using like Shop Monkey and all these other tech metric, I think. I don't get into any of that stuff. I can track everything I need to track directly through Square. And you can do your marketing through there. They even offer business loans to you once you've been in business for so long. So all your processing is done. You can do it at the site. You can do it over the internet. It makes everything extremely streamlined and easy. So I've been with them for going on 2 years, and I've never had an issue with them. And if I've had a small issue, customer support takes care of it right away, and it's fixed.
Yeah,
You
we
can't
use
beat
that.
that.
We use that in one of our businesses, and their customer support has been outstanding.
Yes.
They don't leave you hanging. That's for sure. Now, there are some stores I've gone into, and I ask, "Hey, how long does it take before you can service my car?" And sometimes I'm told 2-3 weeks. I'm not looking forward to going to a concert. I'll wait a few weeks to go to a concert or a show, but I won't wait a few weeks to get my car serviced. I have options.
Correct.
One of the convenience, aside from the fact that you show up, is you're able to get to them more timely. No?
Relatively quick. Yep. If the day has went well and it's been mostly diagnostic jobs, if someone calls, typically I can get there same day. It's usually always by next day. So especially if it's a diagnosis, or if it's, I need you to come check a small issue, like a oil light comes on intermittently. A lot of
Yeah.
vehicles apparently are doing that now. People will be driving them, and then all of a sudden they'll have a flickering, red oil light, which is not fun for anybody involved, because you automatically think that there's something really, really wrong. And of course there could be. But
Right.
typically on those types of things, if it's a repair, I usually do 3 or 4 repairs a day. But when it comes to diagnostic work, I can run through 5 or 6 of those in a day. So yeah, the convenience factor is way different than taking it to even an aftermarket shop. I used to run a Goodyear shop, and the Goodyear shop was usually 7 days out,
Wow.
So it's, dealerships. One of the dealerships I ran, we were 2 weeks out. And if you needed a loaner, we was almost a month out. It was bad.
And that's another
I
thing.
don't have to deal with any of that any longer.
Right.
Right. Yeah, they don't have to have a loaner in most cases. I can usually get a vehicle fixed and done in one day. And that's where another thing comes in. If it's something I know for a fact that it's not something that needs to be done at their home, or, on the side of in their driveway, I'm upfront with them and I let them know, this is something that's outside of my purview. I don't have the facility for it and don't have the tooling for it. Let me give you a name of somebody. And I work with some other shops that's here local that can get vehicles in, and I just let them know that they're not affiliated with me. However, this is somewhere that might be able to get you in, and I let them take it from there. But yeah, the convenience factor is completely different than taking it, like I said, even to an aftermarket in some cases.
So there's a high level of attention that they get because
Correct.
you answer the phone. Now, when you schedule appointments, do you schedule the diagnostic stuff to be independent of the actual repair, or does that depend on the situation of
It depends on the situation, because the way I usually do it is if I set up a diagnostic and I go there and say it's something where one of them, a rodent had eaten through some wiring, a relatively easy fix, I charge the diagnostic fee, and then I basically charge for parts because I'm already there diagnosing the vehicle. Say I've been there 30 minutes and my diagnostic charge is for 1 hour.
Yeah.
So in that case, you have to have some ethics and let those kick in and say, okay, well, this customer is paying me for X amount of time. I haven't used up all that time yet. So what I need to do is do the right thing and charge for the butt connectors and, the heat shrink style type, coatings and all that type of thing.
Yeah.
And you don't charge the additional labor to just repair it, because you're going to rescan afterwards. You're going to clear the codes. You're going to go back in and rescan. You need to make sure that what you just did to it actually took care of the vehicle, that customer's, issue.
And the thing is that, you invest in the tooling because you need particular computer, you need particular scan tools. So when you show up at somebody's home or their office, you're as qualified as the next guy. And I think you said you just passed your last exams for the master certified.
I have all 8, and plus I have the diesel and auto light truck, so that's A9 now. I just passed those would have been last summer, and I had 5 recertifications that since I was in the business still, but I was in management. I just never went and recertified. So I did the 5 recerts, and then I also went and did the other 4 tests that was available for the automotive and went ahead and passed those. And you're right with the tooling, with the scan tools, with the laptop, with the Pico scope, the lab scope. It's just a lot of investment, and people see that, they appreciate it. They don't get to see that when you take their vehicle to a dealership or an automotive, any type of aftermarket. They see me get out, a lab scope, and I got a laptop, and I've got everything set up, and I'm looking at their vehicle, and they're kind of actually taken aback. They don't. That's weird to them because they didn't know maybe that you could hook a laptop to a vehicle.
Right.
They didn't know that. Well, that's one of the ways that they do it at the dealership. Because one of the scan tools that I have is as close to an OEM Audi and Volkswagen scanner that you can get, in the aftermarket, and it's not cheap either. Their stock one that you can buy through Volkswagen if you're an OEM is about $10,500 for the tablet. And these aftermarket ones, they do just about what those other ones will do, other than flashing ECUs in certain cases, because there's still some that you can still buy and you can get hooked up and actually have the ability to flash ECUs also. But you're right. When someone sees that type of hardware that you're pulling out, and they see that, oh, that scan tools, that looks like it's pretty involved, if it's hooked to the vehicle, and they see what it'll do, and you show them some bidirectional controls where you can raise the RPM, by touching the screen on the laptop, or you can touch the screen on the tablet. It blows them away because they had no idea that, that it doesn't have a throttle cable no more. It doesn't. It's all electronic. Everything's run by electric. It's fly by wire. And when you tell somebody that, it stops them in their tracks. They can't believe that it's went that far, because most people, God love them, all they know is I got in it and I pushed the button and it went like it was supposed to, and I took off. And honestly, that's really all you need to know anymore, unless something happens. As soon as something happens, that's when chaos ensues, and it gets a lot worse really fast.
I love this because, it really helps everybody.
Sure.
Because when they see you take out a laptop and tap into their car, and they see you perform some of the functions, and I know I would have questions, so I know there are some consumers that have questions, and it gives our business, the technician, who is the unsung hero, that's often the last to be recognized.
Right.
Although I'm happy to see that that's changing.
True.
But they're not the people that are paraded in front like the heroes, when in fact they are the heroes. So you add a certain legitimacy beyond what most consumers even know exist, because of the level of expertise that you bring in, and you can explain it in such layman's terms that it takes a concept, computer, which is foreign to most people.
Right.
And you I hate the term dumb it down, but you make it relatable so that they can see what you're doing and like, wow, this guy, he's an electronic doctor. And that's why it costs what it costs.
Exactly. And it's the ability to, like you said, break it down into layman's terms where they can see it. Seeing is selling. It's the same thing. It's no different as far as the concept goes. But if they're able to see what exactly it is that you have to go through, even like there's a lot of vehicles where you'll go in and scan something and you'll have to come back out. You have to go and download the log. You have to make sure that, you looked at the freeze frame data, then you clear it. Then you start back in and you actually rescan it. It's not like you just plugged it in like they hear when they go to like an aftermarket store, like an AutoZone or like an Advance. Well, I just plugged it in and here's the code that it spit out. That's not diagnostics. That's code reading. It's completely different. It's a completely different scenario.
And that's not just clearing the code.
No, because they got sued for that. They're not allowed to do that no more. Nope.
Now,
what's
your service area?
They hand the customer the tool now and have them go scan their own vehicle. That's how bad it was, apparently. So my service area is the greater Columbus area here in Ohio. I have been tapped to travel to do some training into Northern Kentucky. And I do that also because I've been through the diagnosis and documentation classes with Volkswagen, and I was a dealership technician, so I know all the additional things that aftermarket techs don't get to do, like making sure that you have a good story so that you get paid for your warranty time. Electronics, electrical, scan tool, all those types of things. I do that training also. But on the automotive side, basically the Ohio area, and if someone calls me and it's worth to go and look at it, typically I'll go. I mean, I've been 105 miles one direction from Central Ohio, so I go just about anywhere that someone needs something done.
And if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, what number would they call, or what's the best way to get a hold of you?
The business phone number is 614-356-7532. And then the easiest way to get a hold and to see what I do is go to @stage1 numeric 1 mobile, just in Facebook. And that's my business page. That's a landing page. You can go there and see any of the work that I've done over the past, year and a half, 2 years. I've documented, I've put pictures, I've put videos. I've done a couple case studies, on the hybrid vehicle was one of them. It had a code in it for the coolant pump, not seeing the correct RPM that it needed. And those vehicles do not have a belt-driven water pump. The coolant pump is driven by a stepper motor that's a digital motor, and it actually puts out a signal back to the PCM, and the PCM sends a signal to it to keep the correct speed. So yeah, if people want to go and see that type of thing, God love them. But yeah, it's all on the website @stage1 mobile in Facebook.
Wow. Steve Apicella, the fact that as a consumer, I don't have to think about how it works is a great experience, but we all know that behind the magic is someone that knows how to pull the levers to make it all work. Wow.
Isn't that the truth?
This has been
That looks like a good place to stop.
Yeah. This has been an incredible show. I want to thank you so much for sharing what you do with us. It just adds value.
I appreciate you having me on. I'd gladly come again.
For anybody that has questions for Robert, I've tagged him in the post. Just click on his name and reach out to him. It all starts with a conversation. As I say every week, we always remember what we forgot to ask when we had the opportunity to do so. But thanks to the internet today, we're just literally a mouse click away from the answer to anything you want to know. So, Robert, thanks again for being on the show. Thank you all for tuning in and supporting the show every week. We'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live.